The Sega Dreamcast. Released on September 9th, 1999. Remember the 9999 ad campaign? It was Sega's much-typed follow-up to the Sega Saturn. Sales were initially strong in the US, but it ultimately ended up getting crushed by the PlayStation 2, which came out a scant 6 months later. The system was ultimately discontinued by Sega only 18 months after its release, and remains the last console the company ever made. You'd think with such a short shelf life, the system would be forgotten about and relegated to the dustbin of history. But the Dreamcast still has a dedicated cult following. The console itself had some groundbreaking features, namely having a modem built in for online activity. The second reason is the library of influential, awesome titles, including Shenmue, Phantasy Star Online, Jet Set Radio, and the Power Stone series. If you were a wrestling fan, the system was great, if you lived in Japan. In the US, we got ports of games we've already covered, like WWF Attitude, and ECW Hardcore Revolution and Anarchy Rules. I didn't go into the Dreamcast ports when I covered those titles, since I didn't have them and they didn't seem to add a lot to their N64 and PlayStation counterparts. The Dreamcast was the only console that ported the arcade game Royal Rumble, and we'll get into that next time. But if you lived in Japan, you got awesome games, like the Giant Graham series, Toukan Retsuden, and this one, Fire Pro D. I figured the D stood for Dreamcast, but the intro gives you all sorts of words that start with D, so take your pick. Fire Pro D is actually the reason why I got a Dreamcast. Well, that and I could get a new system for $50 when they slash prices. But owning a console Fire Pro seemed really cool to me. Well, at least as cool as you can be playing a wrestling game. Now, this part gets a little embarrassing. I knew a guy online who told me he could bootleg a version of the game for me for $10, which the Dreamcast was notorious for. I bought my Dreamcast and PayPal'd the guy and waited, and waited, and waited. I emailed the guy, no response. I waited some more, then got fed up, bought the game legit. And then my bootleg copy showed up the next day. The lesson here, don't be a pirate. Or get better sources. As for the actual game, well, it's Fire Pro. Same 2D, timing-based Fire Pro. Spike took over development from Human in 2000, after the latter went bankrupt. But Spike was largely made up of employees from Human, so the lack of change isn't too surprising. People have asked me if I was going to cover any more Fire Pro games, since they play so similarly. But to me, that's what makes it interesting. It's one thing to put out a 2D wrestling game in 1996, but by 2001, not only had we had many famous franchises gone 3D, we'd see many 3D wrestling games. And Fire Pro D has the same basic presentation they had during the 16-bit days, although the wrestlers themselves certainly look sharper. And the arenas had a 3D look to them, which looked a little wonky while you were making your entrance. But the 2D may be Fire Pro's greatest strength, since it allowed for a bigger roster. And Fire Pro D's roster is huge, over 200 wrestlers once you get all the unlockables. All your early millennial favorites are here, with wrestlers from New Japan, Noah, and All Japan, or All of Japan as it's called here, which always cracks me up. Not enough? How about companies like FMW and Toryumon? No? Okay, here's the Pride Fighting roster. You want more? There's also a Joshi and Lucha section. And if that's not enough, they also put in WWF and WCW rosters, which was nice since WCW had just gone out of business. In a weird way, this is the last WCW game ever made, and well, at least it's a great one. By the way, can you fathom some US company basically putting out a game with WWE, TNA, and Ring of Honor talent, and then just tossing in New Japan and Dragon Gate as well? Another bonus of 2D on the Dreamcast is that it allowed them to put 8 characters on the screen at the same time. So yes, you can do actual 4-on-4 tags. Meanwhile, we're still stuck at a max of 3-on-3 in the latest WWE game, over a decade after Fire Pro D came out. You can also do my favorite feature, an 8-man battle royal. I always tweak the settings to just allow pinfalls, resulting in a complete cluster, which I mean as a compliment. Best of all, when you critical someone, their corpse stays in the ring. And by the end of the match, it resembles Gettysburg with all the bodies strewn about. The game features a Victory Road mode, where you basically have to beat every wrestler on the planet to get the hidden wrestlers. I spent hours playing this as Vader and just wrecking shop. There are a couple of modes for this, including Junior Heavyweight. And I remember Dynamite Kid being as big a bastard in the game as he apparently was in real life. The game also has an MMA mode, tournaments and round robins, of course, and also barbed wire and exploding cage matches, which is funny since only a handful of characters in the game would ever compete in such a match. But hey, anytime you can throw Lou Thez into barbed wire, I say go for it. Extreme. The controls are basically identical to previous games, although they added apron grapples here. But it plays the same. You have weak, medium, and strong grapples, and winning set grapples are based on timing and not button mashing. Some people may be put off by the unchanging gameplay, especially as the series advances to more powerful systems, but in my mind, why try to fix something that works so well? We mentioned the Dreamcast having a modem, but unfortunately you couldn't go online and play yet. But what you could do was download packs of wrestlers, which was great, since the Fire Pro Creator Wrestler was so detailed. Also, I suck at it. You did this by hooking up your Dreamcast to a phone line, getting a free provider account like NetZero, and downloading the various packs. I know we take this for granted now, and the whole process probably seems antiquated, but this was pretty mind-blowing stuff for 2001. Looking at my copy, I see a lot of independent guys, including a CZW pack, which should tell you where my head was in 2002. Also, Spike created downloadable content with a variety of new moves, like the Shiranui and Shining Wizard. And how much did they charge for them? Oh wait, they were free. What a concept. I love this game. It has great gameplay, a huge roster, Creator Wrestler as deep as the ocean, and seemingly endless match customization. But if you're going to play a Fire Pro game, Fire Pro Returns is still your best bet. It's in English, it's cheap, and was on the PlayStation 2. But if you have a Dreamcast, definitely try and track down Fire Pro D. All you need to play is a boot disc you can make yourself. No modding your console or extra equipment needed. Just don't try to bootleg it. Well, till next time, thanks for watching, and remember, the winner is you.